darker, and Yen starts confessing things like having excessively bizarre sexual fantasies and discussing his desire to kill, citing that he had not yet explored the side of himself that wanted to crush, and killing would be the ultimate crushing.
That's because you can't crush nothing with your little ass.
He can crush a Sprite can. Or what was it back in the 80s? Tab? He could crush a Tab can.
On his forehead? I don't know that he can.
No, probably with his little hands.
You got to squeeze the can when you make contact. That's the secret, guys.
Elizabeth claimed in letters that her mother sexually abused her, and this enraged Jens. Eventually, the two came up with this plan. If they could eliminate Derek and Nancy, Elizabeth would inherit their money, and she and Jens could be together. Life could be a dream.
Yeah, because this works out every time for a couple that kills the parents.
Their
oh my fucking God.
teen angst evolved into a plot for cold-blooded murder. Let's pause for a moment and hear from our sponsors. On March 30th, 1985, Jens and Elizabeth rented a car. The pair left Charlottesville, Virginia, and drove to Washington, D.C., where they reserved a room at the Marriott Hotel. She bought movie tickets to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, and The Witness.
I'm a Frankie fan.
Yeah, and I did not realize that Rocky Horror has such a big tradition there in Lynchburg. I mean, not in Lynchburg, but D.C.
Yep.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Well, a lot of major cities
Well, that's true.
do the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
I saw they also saw The Witness.
Room service for two was charged. Elizabeth forged Yen's signature on the credit card receipts. Meanwhile, Jens is driving the rental car to Loose Chippings.
Oh, okay. Here goes their incredible plan in motion.
The Haysoms were surprised when the doorbell rang. Nancy and Derek were drinking when Jens arrived. Surprised, but, they invited him in, set a place for him. Jens thought it would be cool if he could speak to the Haysoms, maybe win them over. Then things might be okay for his relationship with Elizabeth to continue. In his confession, Jens, who never drinks alcohol, had been taking sips of beer for courage the entire drive from D.C. to Boonesboro. The Haysoms also plied Jens with several stiff drinks.
Well, I was going to say, it's a pretty decent ride, a couple 100 miles, right?
The conversation between the Haysoms and Soering eventually turned into a shouting match. Things were just not going well. Everyone's fueled by alcohol.
Yeah, so it's not going good.
Tempers flaring.
He's not winning them over.
Jens attacks Derek with a knife, slicing his throat. The two men fought until Derek finally died. Jens would later say that Derek just wouldn't lie down and die.
So he was a pretty big guy, her father, and Jens is a rather small guy.
Wiry little fella.
Wiry must be that Barney Fife strength.
Derek was stabbed 48 times, 14 stab wounds in the back, and his head nearly decapitated.
Oh my God.
It was gruesome. His throat was cut from ear to ear.
So he just kept going at him, right? Kept stabbing him, and then he would be trying to get away from him. He's stabbing him in the back. Now, oh my God, that's very brutal.
During this vicious altercation, Nancy, as you can imagine, she's got to be freaking the fuck out, right? She runs into the kitchen, grabs a knife, rushes back into the dining room, thinking she can help protect her husband, but Jens managed to wrestle the weapon away from her, and he slits her throat. She made her way into the kitchen, where she fell to the ground, bleeding out.
Jesus Christ. Man, you got to keep a gun at hand.
Jens took off his bloody clothing, bagged them up, and later tossed them in a big dumpster nearby. He tried to clean up some of the blood, but eventually just started smearing it around so no fingerprints could be detected.
Oh, okay.
After feeling confident with the cleanup job he had done, he went outside, but soon realized that the front porch light was left on, and he thought this would draw some suspicion. So he took off his shoes and crept back inside the house looking for the light switch, but he couldn't find it. He didn't know that the light switch for the front door was actually in their bedroom.
Oh, really?
He thought it would be in the hallway or something.
Oh, that's
so he
strange.
can't find it, leaves it on. He hops in his rental car and drives back to Washington, D.C. Now, when he arrives at the hotel, he was not wearing pants because he had thrown them away.
Oh, so he shows back up in a shirt and underwear?
Apparently.
Okay.
Just a regular night in D.C., bro.
So she's been there the whole time, ordering room service.
Sitting through these movies.
And
establishing an alibi.
Yeah, basically establishing an alibi. You say she forged his name to one of the room service receipts, right?
And the movie tickets.
Movie tickets. And so he's done. So they got the car, went to Washington. He drove back to Lynchburg. And now he's drove back to Washington.
Yeah, he's driven back there. So Tuesday, April the 3rd, several days after the attack, and this is 1985, remember, friends who attended the Haysom's regular bridge game arrived at the normal time to find that the front door was locked, no one's answering, and the porch light is on. This is really unusual. Vehicles seem to be there. They don't know what's going on. And they start to fear something has happened. The friends call a woman named Annie Massey, who was another good friend of the Haysoms, and she'd actually been given a house key by the couple when they had gone out of town on these extended European vacations and trips. She had a house key to go in, water the plants, check on everything, one of those friends.
Yeah, feed the hellhounds that guard the estate.
And it was then that the butchered bodies were discovered in this gruesome display.
And it sounds like, I'm sure that what I saw of the scene is blood every fucking where. All over the place. Multiple victims.
I know the term bloodbath gets thrown around quite a bit.
This is.
But that would be the only way to describe this scene.
It is on the walls. It's on the floor. It is everywhere.
Authorities are baffled by the horror inside. As you mentioned, Dylan, blood everywhere. Gore. It was horrific. Like something out of a horror movie.
Yeah, I'm going to, when he said it, Jens said he just wouldn't die or whatever, that was an extended, God knows how long attack on her father.
But investigators soon noted that there had been nothing removed from the house. Nancy had cash left in her purse. There was silverware. And I don't just mean like the $9.99 Walmart cutlery.
No.
These people had real silver.
Dude, I'm sure everywhere within 5 feet, everywhere you looked was something of pretty significant value in this home.
Art, antiques, a lot of expensive items. It hadn't been ransacked. There were no signs of forced entry, no sexual assault on Nancy. And murders like this just didn't happen in Lynchburg. The town was shaken, especially since it was a pair of retirees and the fact that no one seemed to have a clue who would commit these crimes.
And they're not seeing any motive. It's not some sexual deviant. It's not some monster. It's not theft. If you interrupt burglars and all that mess, they're just seeing no motive at all. So where are they going to start looking now?
With the amount of dried blood, investigators knew it had been several days since the couple was killed. Now, one clue would stick out in their minds: a missing place setting. It was clear from the table arrangement and the chairs that 3 people had been dining in the home. However, only the Haysom's place settings were on the table. A little physical evidence was left behind, but not a whole lot to go on. They found some O blood at the scene, but it didn't belong to the victims. They had A and AB blood. It looked like a bare footprint had dried in the blood, but there were no fingerprints found. And the O blood was found in the bathroom sink, which led detectives to believe that the assailant had washed up after the murders.
Yeah, the Jens wasn't as smart as he thought he was he? How to rearrange them chairs.
Theories swirled. People in Lynchburg began spreading stories about Satanists who practiced murderous rituals on the Blue Ridge Parkway. And it was almost a Manson-like killing. So some people thought it could be some sort of Manson type of cult.
Dude, it's 85.
Satanic panic.
Yes, it doesn't take long. Anything out of the ordinary or normal is, it's got to be Satan.
16 years after the Manson killings? I mean, so this is people are
satanic
thinking
panic.
about it. And just with the amount of blood and the style of killing, I can see where people would automatically be like, Holy shit.
And there was no reason, like I said just a minute ago, there's no reason for what has happened. There's no robbery, nothing. There's no motive. So that kind of is easy to make that conclusion in your mind. It's got to be some shit you don't understand, some devil worshippers.
As suspects were eliminated and excluded, detectives reach out to the Haysom's children, hoping that they might have some information on who'd want to harm their parents. Now, Elizabeth was interviewed for about 2 hours initially. She gave up fingerprints, blood samples. She told police she had tried to reach her parents for days, that she had rented a car on the weekend of the murder to sightsee in Washington, D.C. When asked about anyone who might want to kill her parents, Elizabeth said her father had some powerful enemies tied to the Canadian Labor Union. Again, he oversaw the steel mill and said, there were people that were part of the union that he had pissed off.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I could see, if, negotiating contracts and such. Yeah, it could be a big deal.
But no motives or links were found. They contacted, the Canadian Mountie Force or whatever they're called, and they just couldn't seem to find any links to tie that theory together. And the case was cooling, and it just seemed no one knew what had happened. Derek Haysom's son, Howard, a Houston doctor, pointed the finger at Elizabeth. Howard pointed out that Elizabeth's drug use had been a big problem. Her relationship with Jens had placed a lot of strain on the relationship she had with her parents. And Howard believed his little half-sister was the devil in disguise.
So, yeah, they've seen her be difficult. Even though you outlined a lot of pressures that were put on her, and maybe some of that caused her to act out. But, in a lot of the pictures and things we went through when you were showing me this case, she doesn't look happy at all. She looks
surly.
I mean, even more so than, the teen who is like, oh, my parents were stupid. Bull. I mean, it just looks like, it looks like she hates her parents. I mean, I don't know if I'm reading too much into those pictures. She just looks very unhappy. Maybe she's high as fuck on heroin. I don't know.
She looks like a surly, miserable teenager in all the photos. I don't think I saw a single photo where she was smiling or looked genuinely happy.
Degree. And you got all this stuff, and that just goes to show you, stuff doesn't fill the void. If you're not happy, you're not happy. And she has all this, everything she could ever want, all these opportunities, and she's just,
We're responsible for our own happiness.
Yeah, fuck it. I'm going to take a year off and, go see part of Italy and get high.
Her behavior had struck investigators as strange. She did seem very reserved and detached. She showed no emotion. However, she'd been cooperative with investigators. The car rental agreement was pulled and showed there were hundreds of extra miles on the car. Jens and Elizabeth claimed they'd gotten lost several times. However, the mileage from Charlottesville to D.C., to Lynchburg, back to D.C., then to Charlottesville again, was exactly 600 miles.
Yeah, when it should have been, 240 round trip to shoot up D.C. and back to where they rented the car?
Well, it was actually 400 miles more than what would be needed to get to D.C. from Charlottesville.
Right.
And back.
Yeah, so I don't know how you get lost that much. You've went the trip 3 times? Yeah, that's a lot of getting lost.
Yeah, I've lived in D.C., and I'm telling you, you can get lost there, but the Beltway is fairly simple to navigate.
Yeah, if
You're not going to put an extra 400 miles on a car driving the loop around D.C.
I don't know what the proper number, because having got turned around a few times is, but it ain't an extra 400 fucking miles.
I just imagine Jens and Elizabeth, recreating this scene from European Vacation, where he's like, look, kids, Big Ben, Parliament. And they're just driving around there. He's like, look, kids, the mall, the monument.
They aren't as smart as they thought they were. I mean, what the fuck, guys?
Investigators managed to spray some luminol in the rental car, but they didn't find any traces of blood, surprisingly.
See, that's interesting. Even though maybe Jens got fresh. He didn't bring backup clothes or anything. What a dumbass.
But if he stripped down and he threw everything away, including the bloody socks, he might have been barefoot.
If he stripped, he may have cleaned up for real and just grabbed a t-shirt or something out. I mean, I don't know why you don't get pants, but he had to have cleaned up. He was covered in blood after this attack on these 2 people. There's no way he wasn't. Head to toe.
Investigators tapped the Marriott Hotel for videotapes. They did have security cameras in the lobby and such, but they had already been erased by the time that cops wanted to view the footage.
Because now we're probably a week plus later.
That summer, Elizabeth and Jens go on vacation together to Europe. They